Oh, I'm singing along. We're very excited here. We have with us, ladies and gentlemen, Dame Julie Andrews. Dame Julie, how lovely to see you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
I'm moving my microphone down so I can look at you, because otherwise I'm staring at Andy. And
that's okay.
So many times I've looked at Andy and spoke about the sound of music, and it's always a strange response I get. How lovely to see you. Now, you've just flown in. Do you live in the States at the moment? Is that right?
Yes, I do. My spouse is Blake Edwards is the American director, and that's where his work is. So that's where I live.
The Great American Director. I saw him recently on I think it was the Oscars that he came out on. Was it the Oscars where he was given
Yes, and he whizzed across the stage.
A very, very funny appearance.
He said, I just have to do something different. I can't, with my reputation for comedy and working with Peter Sellers as I do, I have to do it.
It was brilliant because it was so surprising. So now, how long have you been in LA? It's many, many years you've been out there, I believe.
I've been out, yeah. I mean, I come back more often than you know and sneak into England, but this is a sort of professional visit, and I come in and out about 2-3 times a year to see family, and of course they come to me.
And you live down by the coast or in the centre of town?
No, we live in LA. We live sort of somewhere toward the coast, but not by the coast.
Okay, but it's close enough to get a breeze occasionally.
Oh yeah, very much.
Yeah,
so.
because
and a fog.
Well, it can be very smoggy and quite unpleasant there, can't it? Otherwise,
it's much better than it used to be.
Really?
Yeah, it is. I don't know whether that's because they've dealt with all the car emissions.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is sorting it out.
Yeah. Let's hope.
Who would have thought Arnold Schwarzenegger would ever amount to anything?
Well,
you know what I'm saying.
I won't go there, Jonathan.
But good luck to him. Good luck to him and those who vote for him. How lovely to see you again. It feels right having you back in the country.
It's great to be back, I can tell you. I love it.
What do you miss, though, about England? Do you miss much about England?
Yeah, I sure do. I miss my friends, and I miss the spring and the countryside, which I adore. I have family here still. I don't have a mum and a dad, but I do have a lot of family. So, and they're all going to come up for supper tonight. And,
how lovely.
Yeah.
So it'll be a big get-together. And how long are you over for this time?
Just until, I think, Wednesday or Thursday, Jonathan.
So it's a whirlwind visit.
It is.
Do you get to do any shopping while you're here? Do you get to catch any shows, or is it all work?
At the moment, it's, I think, going to be all work. It's a pretty aggressive schedule.
Well, if you're free Tuesday night, it's Halloween.
That's right, it is.
And I've got some spare costumes.
That over here?
Oh, we do now. I've got it's a zombie theme at my house this year, and if you're interested, you're welcome.
Thank you. May I come as a zombie too?
There'll be pumpkin soup and small cakes with ghosts on. Okay? And I don't want to give any secrets away, but I've hired a dwarf for the garden.
What?
Never
What's
you
that
mind.
got to do with zombies?
He's going to be a zombie dwarf.
Poor man.
Well, poor man. He can't believe his luck.
I'm thrilled that they do Halloween over here. It's great for kids.
It is great for kids, and there's a bit of concern. It was on the news earlier about people knocking on strangers' doors and so on, but if it's dealt with responsibly, parents go out with them. We go out with them.
We go with a parent or something.
Now, you may or may not be aware that Dame Julie is also a writer of note. I mean, obviously we think of her primarily as an actress and as a performer who sings as well, but over the years you've written many children's books.
I think I've been writing for about 30-something years now, Jonathan, and so a lot of people say, celebrity authors, but I think 30 years or more it sort of qualifies one as...
I think you're in it for the long haul. That isn't a flash in the pan.
I do enjoy it very much.
I remember seeing one of your books years ago, which I had and I used to read to my children. I think it was The Last of the Great Wang Doodles?
Last of the Really Great Wang.
The Really Great. When was that? How long ago was that?
That was in the mid-70s, I think.
That was great fun.
Yeah, I loved it. And that was my second book, and then and I seem to have been writing ever since, and I really enjoy it.
So how did you start writing? What was it that prompted you to...
I fell into it quite by accident. I was playing a game with my kids in the late 60s, and we were on a movie, and they were running around and getting into trouble, and I was trying to film and do 2 jobs at once, be a mum as well, and we decided to all play a game, and it was one of those games where you have to pay a forfeit if you fail. I was the first one to lose. I said, okay, what's my forfeit going to be? And my eldest daughter said, write me a story. And I thought, well, I'll just write a couple of pages, like an Aesop's fable or something. But she was my new stepdaughter, and I thought, maybe I can make a difference. And I began to write her a little novel, which I did give her eventually, and it was called Mandy, and that was my first book. So I really, I would not have written it without Blake's encouragement. He kept saying, just let the pages keep mounting up and it'll happen. And that's why I go under the name of Julie Andrews Edwards when I write, because if it hadn't been for Blake Edwards, I probably wouldn't have had the guts.
What a lovely story. And now the truth, please.
No, I swear to God, that's
I know,
the truth, Jonathan.
Dave, Julie, I know. But what a charming story, and what a lovely, and presumably, did it help you with your stepdaughter? Did the two of you become closer?
Yes. I mean, we bound the very first edition, which Blake illustrated for her, and then my agents loved it and said, we should submit this, and they did, and I got lucky enough to have it published.
But wow, that's really pushing out the boat for a child there, because for me, maybe a trip to Toys R Us would be...
Well, this was a new stepdaughter, and it mattered, and she was a town girl, and this was a story about the country.
How lovely.
Yeah.
Let's get on to your next book in a minute, but do you keep in touch with modern music? Do you listen to new bands much, or is your taste pretty much as it was 15, 20 years ago?
I have to be honest with you, Jonathan, it's probably pretty much as it was.
Yeah.
But I do try, and thank God for kids and grandkids, because they keep you fresh,
I bet they do. Are you aware of this phenomenon in the States, and it's catching on over here called, I think it was called the High School Musical?
Yes.
There's a TV thing. It's
yes.
huge, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Oh.
I know, and I think all things to do with children's theatre these days, everything is just flourishing.
Which,
I'm happy
of course,
to say.
is a lovely thing to say, yes.
Yeah.
My little one loves it's a Disney thing, isn't it? The American High School Musical, and I know kids are crazy for
Yes,
it.
well, they're very smart at Disney, and it's a wonderful idea.
Oh, they know what they're doing. All right, well, let's put something on. What are we going to put on?
You got a choice then,
Julie.
So, you got the new single from Tom Waits.
Okay,
It's going back a bit.
okay.
Or a new single from The Feeling.
I think you'll like The Feeling.
All right,
okay.
Give me.
We want your verdict after this. This is the new one from The Feeling. That's a nice sound. You like The Feeling?
I vote that one in.
There you go. Julie's behind The Feeling, and it sounds a little bit super trampy.
Yeah, that piano at the end.
I like that. Dame Julie Andrews is with us because she has a new book out under her name of Julie Andrews Edwards, which she's co-written with Emma Walton Hamilton,
who happens to be my daughter.
And the book is called The Great American Mousical. I've been reading it at home from my English one, and it's what a charming and lovely story.
You are, dear Jonathan. I think that's very sweet of you to read it at home.
I would have said that even if I weren't, though. I would have lied, but I'm not lying. It just so happens. And it's what's lovely about it, I think, though, is because it's not just it's a lovely story for kids, but also it's obviously set in an area that you know. And
it came about quite by accident. I was doing a show on Broadway called Victor Victoria, the musical, and we had a mouse in the wardrobe. Again, it sounds like a made-up story, but it isn't. And I begged the powers that be to put a humane trap there, not one of those knockout.
Yeah, so it catches
ones.
them and you can release them elsewhere.
That's right.
That makes it someone else's problem.
Yes, and I asked them to release it outside, and let it go. And somebody made some idiot remark about they probably come up to see the show every night, and a light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, oh my God, that would be wonderful, because I could really write a little story about a troupe of performing mice who live beneath the boards of a great Broadway theatre, and I could pull out all the things that I know about theatre, and it's also about that somebody very, very small can make a big difference, and the theatre that they work in is threatened by the wrecking ball and a huge snowstorm and all sorts of things, so it's a big adventure.
And as someone who's presumably worked with Ronnie Corbett, I imagine there's a backstory there as well. It's lovely illustrations as well. Who's done the drawings?
The illustrations, well, we kept it all in the family, Jonathan. The illustrations are done by Emma's dad, Tony Walton, who is my great friend and happens to have been my first spouse. And so we couldn't have thought of anybody better, since he is one of the great designers on Broadway. So he too got into the spirit of it. It was just a labour of love.
So he knows the milieu as well.
I'll say better than I do, or even I or Emma.
We better go to the news, I think. But I want to ask you about working on Broadway afterwards, and obviously your movies as well. We're talking with Dame Julie more after the news. Stick around if you can. 88 to 91 FM. This is Radio 2 from the BBC. Roxy Music there.
Yeah.
That's a fabulous track, and I think that met with your approval as well, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Oh, there you go. You see, Roxy Music
doing well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're batting 1,000.
2 out of 2. Let's see if we can keep it up.
Yes.
We'll talk a bit more about the book in a minute. But the new book from Dame Julie is The Great American Mousical. It's published by Puffin here in the UK, and it's actually, you know what, just out in time for Christmas. It's a lovely read for the kids. It really is lovely, and beautiful illustrations as well. And set obviously in as we said, an environment which you know so well.
Yes.
The theatre. This book's set in the Sovereign Theatre, which I don't believe exists. But
no, it doesn't. We had to make up a name for a theatre, but it's supposed to be right smack in the centre of Broadway.
And you've performed in Broadway any number of times, haven't you?
I have. I did. My first show I ever did was The Boyfriend, and then.
And how old were you then?
I was 19, just 19. I turned 19 the day after we
So
opened.
that's about 20 years ago.
About that, Jonathan.
And what a great musical as well to be in.
Well, it was a great learning thing for me. And then My Fair Lady, of course, was the...
And was that on Broadway first, or did you do that here first?
No, Broadway first. And I did it for 2 years on Broadway, and then I did it for 18 months here.
And how
That's a marathon.
How does that compare? How does it? Do the American audiences, did they back then differ from the audiences here in the United Kingdom?
There is a difference, and it's an interesting one. The audiences on Broadway seem to follow the book very, very closely, and here the sense of humour is different in England. It's a lot more quick, and there's really very little difference, but there is that subtlety.
And do you wind up playing it differently? Do you kind of perform slightly differently for the...
Perhaps eventually you adapt just a tiny bit. The other thing that's really daunting is that there's a slightly different level in terms of a tuning pitch. In America, they pitch to an A that's X decibels slightly lower, and when I came over here and they were lifted, I thought I was singing in a different key altogether.
There's no way I would even know, frankly, what you're talking about there, but but it's fascinating.
Well, it's just that when an orchestra tunes up, you tune to X number of reverberations, but they're not quite as many in the States, which makes it a slightly flatter sound. And over here, it's a slightly sharper sound.
See, that's why Dame Julie's one of the greats. You ask anyone from Girls Aloud about that, they've got the faintest idea what you're talking about. You worked with Rex Harrison.
It may have changed now, but in those days, that's the way it was.
I'm sure it hasn't. Rex Harrison you worked with in My Fair Lady, of course.
I did.
Who was a tremendous, charismatic performer.
Oh, phenomenal, talented man.
Quite a handful socially.
Difficult to work with, but so brilliant. You know, if somebody can cut the mustard, you forgive them everything. Yeah. And it was a wonderful... You know, they threw me into this big pond, and it was sink or swim, and I learned a lot, believe me.
Yeah, and it was a great partnership, of course, the two of you had on stage.
Well, also, I thought you were going to say it was a great part. Eliza Doolittle, for a woman in musicals, is probably one of the greatest roles.
Because the range, you've got the whole
huge.
thing.
You've got George Bernard Shaw, you've got gorgeous music, you've got screaming Cockney, you've got playing the lady and all of that. Yeah. It's very taxing.
But what a fun part to get you into.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Let me ask you about some of the other roles you're associated with. Of course, we can't really sit and chat without a small mention of Mary Poppins. Still, the fact that film is possibly as popular today as it ever was.
It's phenomenal, and I'm so blessed to have been part of it, and I'm very proud to have been a part of it. It was Disney's first big live action and animation film, and certainly the first really big one he attempted, and it seems to have stood the test of time.
Did you meet the lady who wrote it? Because I believe she was still alive.
P.L. Travers. I did. Yes, she wrote the original Poppins books, and I did get to meet her. Yeah.
And did she approve of the movie version?
I doubt that. She was a tough lady. She called me the day after I gave birth to my lovely Emma, who's written this book with me, and she said, "Talk to me." And I spoke to her, and she said, "Well, you've got a good voice and you've got the nose for it, but you're far too pretty."
Well, it's a nice thing to hear that. But, I'm thrilled that Disney haven't remade that movie, because they seem to be going back and remaking or making sequels to these films, and I'm delighted that they haven't touched that one.
They probably will one day, but who knows?
I kind of hope not. But of course, it's a big hit here.
Huge here, and it just opened on Broadway.
Yeah, and it's a lovely show to see with the kids. So
yes.
It's a big success, but a different kind of animal altogether. And there is that with movies. When you see a movie and you see it on stage, of course, they're normally very, very different things.
Yeah.
Do you still ever think about what would have happened if you'd have been given the chance to play My Fair Lady in the movie instead of Audrey Hepburn getting the role?
You know, the only thing I think about, Jonathan, is at the time I completely understood. I really did. It was the star system in Hollywood, and they needed a huge star. And I was a big fish, but in a very little pond, if you think about all of America and the world in those days. Yeah. And Audrey played the role, and we were, until she passed away, very good friends. But I guess over the years I've said to myself, well, it would have been lovely to put the role down definitively somewhere, but it's hard to be churlish about it when Disney comes along 6 months later and says, would you like to do Mary Poppins?
Which then you went on to win the Oscar for, I believe.
I mean, how lucky can anybody get?
But I would love to have seen it, just selfishly, I would have loved to have seen you in that role, and of course, never did and never will.
Oh, well, no, not now.
I can, in my dreams, I can. So we're 2 out of 2 on the music so far.
Yeah, okay.
And I think we've established, we know, while we were talking during the news, what Julie likes to listen to. You recently saw Elton John live, I believe.
I was working with him 2 days ago in America, in Dallas.
And what sort of health was Elton in?
Oh, great. I mean, the energy that gentleman has, and he did an hour-and-a-half show solo.
He's in expansive mood. That's what I like to hear. What do we have to play from Elton's back catalogue?
We mentioned Sorry Seems to be the hardest word.
Oh, I love that song.
This is a lovely song.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a lovely song.
Isn't that a great song?
We tend to forget, I think, because Elton's such a part of all our lives, and we see him as a kind of lovable and occasionally comical character. We forget he's written some incredible music.
Incredible stuff. Yeah.
Okay, Dame Julie Andrews is with us. We're delighted to say she has a book out, The Great American Mousical. One of many. How many over the years do you think you've written all told?
I guess I've written personally written about 17 books, but I have a small publishing collection in the United States called the Julie Andrews Collection, and we publish other people's books as well. We commission some. We search for wonderful old ones that are worthy of reconsideration, and we've done about 24 now.
How nice. So mainly children's books?
All children's books, from ages, 1.5 years up to young adults, which is about 14, 15.
The saying goes that everyone has at least one book inside them. Do you believe that to be true?
I think it is probably true. Yeah.
Would you care to publish Andy's? he had a bike accident recently.
If it's for that age group, yes, Andy, I wouldn't mind.
OK, let's turn that into a fable for children.
What, not riding motorbikes?
Not to ride a motorbike into a car.
Boys would like that.
That's the life lesson. There you go, one for the kids. Recently, of course, you've been in movies that are just as popular, I think, for their audience as the great musicals you made in the 60s and 70s.
Well, we had a few flops along the way.
Well, hasn't everyone? But
ups and downs.
But recently, The Princess Diaries have been a huge success.
I know. It's like a bookend for me. I bumped into a mum the other day, and it really does date one. And she said to her little 6-year-old, "Do you know who this lady is?" And the 6-year-old looked rather blank, and mum said, "Well, Mary Poppins," and the child still looked a bit blank. And then she said, "Well, Sound of Music," and the child still looked a little blank. And she said, "And of course, Princess Diaries," and the girl perked up and said, "Oh, cool!" So
that's great, though. Isn't that? Several generations.
Yeah, that sort of says it right there.
Do I remember correctly? Did you ride a mattress down a stairway in The Princess Diaries?
Yes, I did, and I did it, Jonathan. Everybody wonders if I did, and I did.
That's quite some achievement.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do it again.
The Evil Knievel of musical theatre.
And I don't recommend children trying it.
Well, no, of course not, but it was quite some scene. I remember thinking, is that computer generated, or is that really Dame Julie Andrews on a mattress?
Why not?
What a great day at work that must be. I bet they were panicking around you, though, weren't they?
Well, they were. What about me?
It's lovely to see you again. Thank you so much for coming in.
It's been such a pleasure, and thank you for talking about the book.
Well, hopefully next time you come in, we can do so many other things I'd love to talk about, including I really wanted to talk about Star, the musical you made in the 70s, which I believe had Bruce Forsyth in.
It did indeed, and we've been great friends.
Well, let's leave him hanging for that one. He's on TV tonight at the BBC, so if you're near a TV set later on, you'll see that he's still going strong. That's him calling now, probably. That's a noise. I should have turned that off. I'm sorry. Dame Julie, lovely to see you again.
And you, Jonathan.
It's a lovely book, The Great American Mousical. Get yourself a copy.
Published by Puffin.
Yeah, get one for the kids in your life for Christmas. Lovely to see you again. Have a lovely stay here in the UK.
Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Okay, thank you for joining us.
Bye.